No one saw it coming. Not the sudden shift in their bank account, not the quiet confidence in the way they moved, not the way opportunities just found them. But Capricorn didn't need anyone to see it. They didn't ask for applause. They didn't post the milestones. They simply became the force behind them. Because while others chased wealth out loud, Capricorn mastered it in silence. There's something about the way a Capricorn builds. They don't just earn, they engineer. They don't just dream. They draft, refine, and repeat until the dream is real and profitable. And if lately you felt this same quiet fire stirring in you, a slow, strategic hunger, a knowing that your future wealth won't be won through noise but through discipline, then what you're feeling isn't pressure, it's a prelude. Because what turns Capricorn into a silent tycoon isn't magic, it isn't luck, it's a pattern. A set of financial habits, refined, ruthless, and rooted in something far deeper than money. So what exactly are these habits? What do Capricorns do differently when no one's watching, that eventually turns into generational wealth? This isn't a story of instant riches. This is about structure, about rhythm, about knowing how to delay, direct, and dominate without ever needing to dominate a room. And here's where the story gets cosmic. Because what's unfolding in the skies right now is amplifying every trait that makes Capricorn a builder of empires. Let's talk Saturn, the planet of structure, mastery, and long-term success. Saturn rules Capricorn, and Saturn is now transiting Pisces, your third house of mindset and communication. This may sound subtle, but it's not. It means that from 2023 through early 2026, Capricorn is undergoing a deep mental refinement. You're being taught not just to speak well, but to think like a strategist, to remove mental clutter, to cut emotional noise, to master self-talk, decision-making, and daily discipline on a whole new level. This isn't just theory, it's training, and it's already showing up in the way you budget, in the way you say no to short-term dopamine, in the way you move like someone who's already wealthy, not loud, not flashy, but lethal with intention. At the same time, Pluto, the planet of power and transformation, has been dancing on the edge of Aquarius, your second house of earned income. This is seismic. This is legacy money energy. And when Pluto fully enters Aquarius in November 2024 for a 20-year stay, Capricorn's financial story won't just shift. It will evolve into something generational. But only if the foundations are already being laid, right now. In the quiet hours, in the small choices, in the habits no one claps for. So if you're a Capricorn, or carry strong Capricorn energy, and you've been refining your relationship to money, you're not behind. You're preparing. And the wealth you're building isn't for the feed, it's for the future. Let's go deeper. Not through numbers or step-by-step lists, but through the real movements, internal and external, that turn Capricorn from the quietest person in the room to the one who owns the building. Because what they do with money isn't obvious. It's embedded in who they are. And if you're ready to remember that side of yourself, or activate it for the first time, then stay with me. What you're about to hear might not sound loud, but it will echo in your bank account for decades. It starts in small decisions, like walking past the impulse buys, like hearing the voice that says, just this once, and calmly declining. Capricorn doesn't fight desire with force, they replace it with vision. They know that wealth isn't made from what you earn, it's made from what you keep, and what you grow, and what you say no to when the world is screaming yes. It's the ritual of checking their accounts when everyone else avoids them, of making peace with the numbers, even when they're not impressive yet. Because control begins with awareness. And Capricorn doesn't run from reality, they restructure it. You'll often find them tightening things no one else sees, not because they're cheap, but because they're precise. They know that every dollar, like every hour, has a job. And if it's not working for them, it's working against them. There's a patience in their process that looks like stillness, until it's not. Because while others rush to show off early wins, Capricorn quietly stacks their foundations. One disciplined decision at a time, one well-timed pivot, one boundary that protects their time, energy, and financial runway. They don't treat money like magic, they treat it like a mirror, and that reflection tells them more about themselves than any external praise ever could. When they get a raise or a windfall, they don't spend it to feel richer, they move it where it multiplies. They think like an architect, blueprints first, emotions second. There's no shame in slowness for Capricorn, because slowness is sustainable. And sustainable is scalable. They're the ones who invest while others scroll, the ones who read while others react, the ones who remember that every temporary sacrifice builds a more permanent kind of freedom. It's in how they separate identity from income. They don't need to look rich to become rich. They'd rather feel stable than fake successful. And that difference? That's where generational wealth begins. They set goals in quarters, not moods. They create systems, not sprints. They understand that confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being prepared. And when something breaks, they don't panic, they pivot. Because when your wealth is built on discipline instead of dopamine, you don't crumble under pressure, you recalibrate. Capricorn's financial rise doesn't look like a viral moment. It looks like habits layered over time. It looks like 10 years of saying no to short-term comfort for the long-term crown. And the beautiful thing is, it's never too late to adopt that mindset. It's not inherited, it's built. And you can start building it today, not by changing everything, but by choosing differently, just once, then again, until it stops being a choice and becomes who you are. But here's where it gets dangerous. Not because something bad is coming, but because something good is. The turning point for Capricorn isn't failure, it's comfort. It's the moment when things start to work, and the pressure to prove yourself begins to ease. It's when you look around and think, maybe this is enough, even though deep down you know it's not. Because enough was never the goal. Legacy was, and legacy requires vigilance. This is the phase where most people plateau. They get a taste of success and slow down. They relax their discipline. They scale back their vision. And they unconsciously shrink to fit the version of them that others can tolerate. Capricorn doesn't make that mistake, not if they're awake, not if they remember that the finish line is just the halfway point in disguise. Because the second you let the world convince you to just be grateful, you trade your empire for a well-decorated cage. This is your reminder. There's a difference between contentment and complacency, between stillness and stagnation, between peace and pause. Capricorn was never meant to pause for long. You're a builder, not just of homes or businesses or brands, but of timelines, of systems, of scaffolding for generations who will never know your name, but will still live inside your decisions. The real wealth you're creating isn't just in dollars, it's in dignity. In knowing that you don't have to shout to be heard, that you don't have to flash to be felt. That power doesn't always arrive with sound. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in the steady rhythm of a life aligned. Capricorn's journey isn't glamorous until it is. And even then, you'll likely choose to stay behind the curtain. Not because you're hiding, but because you don't need validation to feel valuable. You've seen what noise buys. You want what legacy builds. And that, right there, is the great remembering, that you weren't meant to hustle forever. You were meant to master once, and let the mastery create the movement. So if you felt alone in this season, if your restraint has been misunderstood as rigidity, if your boundaries have made others uncomfortable, then good. It means you're close. It means you're exiting the realm of temporary wins and entering the era of unshakable roots. It means you're moving like the version of you who doesn't just want more, you know how to hold it. This isn't about getting rich quick. It's about becoming unbreakable, slowly, silently, strategically, so that when the world finally notices, you'll already be too far ahead to care. It's easy to forget how much you've already changed, because discipline doesn't always feel like progress. It feels like repetition, like saying no for the 100th time, like walking past the same temptations again and choosing the long game. But that's the thing about Capricorn. You don't crave the high of new, you crave the strength of true. And what's true now is this: you're not where you were, you're not who you were. And if you've been keeping promises to yourself in private, the rewards are already in motion, even if no one can see them yet. So pause, reflect, and answer, silently or out loud. Have you stopped chasing fast wins and started setting long-term foundations? Have you shifted from spending to strategizing, not just with money, but with time, energy, and attention? Are you moving from proving to preparing? From noise to nuance? From I hope to I know? If yes, even in whispers, then you're not just changing your finances. You're changing your identity. You're becoming the kind of person money trusts. Because money is like energy. It flows where it feels safe, where it feels seen. where it knows it will be respected, not idolized, not flaunted, but used wisely. And Capricorn, that's what you've been learning to do, not just to earn more, but to hold more, to carry it without leaking, to protect it without hoarding, to expand it without abandoning yourself in the process. So where do you go from here? Start with where you already are. Look at the systems you've built, even if they're imperfect. Look at the decisions you've normalized that most people still struggle with. Look at how naturally you prioritize sustainability over show. These are not small things. They are the architecture of wealth. Then look ahead, not to escape where you are, but to align more deeply with where you're meant to be. What needs refining? What habit feels stable but could be scaled? What part of your routine is ready for reinvention, not because it's wrong, but because you've outgrown it? Now let yourself imagine what's possible if you stayed this consistent for 5 more years. 10. Not obsessively, not perfectly, but steadily, intentionally, quietly. Can you feel it? The life where your money supports your mission, not distracts from it. The timeline where your bank account doesn't define you, but reflects you. Where your success is not an aesthetic, but a structure. Where you walk into rooms without needing to prove you belong, because your presence and your portfolio already speak. That's the version of you who doesn't just earn well. They invest well, they rest well, they lead well, and they last. And the secret is, you're already becoming them. Not by doing everything at once, but by doing one small thing differently, again and again, until it becomes your second skin. Like waking up a little earlier to review your financial plan, not to feel anxious, but to feel prepared. Like saying no to the event you can't afford emotionally, even if it costs you social points. Like choosing to track the details no one else cares about, because those details are where your power hides. Like setting a vision that's bigger than this week, this season, this trend, because legacy is your timeline. And no, you don't need to talk about it. You don't need to post every pivot. Because some of the most powerful moves you'll ever make will happen quietly, without witnesses, without claps, without commentary, just alignment, just follow through, just you becoming undeniable, on purpose. You're not behind, you're not invisible, you're not slow, you're strategic. And when you finally stop measuring yourself by the noise around you, you'll realize that silence was never your weakness. It was your signal, your clarity, your calibration. Capricorn wasn't built to compete. Capricorn was built to compound. Every quiet decision you've made, every habit you've protected when no one else was watching, every uncomfortable no you've said to instant pleasure, it hasn't been wasted. It's been compounding. It's been working beneath the surface, like roots do. And now you're stepping into the season where those roots become visible, where what was once underground shows up in outcomes. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. You became someone who doesn't chase but commands, someone who doesn't need applause to be certain, someone who isn't just building wealth, but becoming the kind of person wealth is safe with. That's rare, and that's powerful. So take a moment to pause, to honor how far you've already come, not just financially, but personally, to see the discipline beneath the surface, to witness yourself with reverence, not resistance. Because here's the truth, you don't need to be louder, you don't need to move faster, you don't need to show more, you just need to keep going, with your head clear, with your habits sharp, with your vision rooted in something no algorithm can touch. This is not the story of overnight success, this is the story of inevitable wealth, the kind that echoes in your choices, the kind that lasts longer than attention spans. And if this message stirred something in you, even if it was quiet, let that be your confirmation. That you are already walking the silent path of the tycoon, that you don't need to shout, because wealth speaks, and yours is getting louder even in silence. If this resonated with you, let yourself respond, not with noise but with action. Write down one commitment to your financial self, one decision you've been delaying, one upgrade your future self will thank you for. And if you want to mark this moment, this remembering, leave a comment. Not for the algorithm, for yourself, as a declaration, as a signature, as a quiet promise that the wealth you're building is just getting started. Capricorn, you don't need to say much. You've already said everything, in the way you show up, in the way you keep going, in the way you turn every quiet choice into a legacy. They call it boring, they call it rigid, they call it safe, But what most people misunderstand about Capricorn's relationship to wealth is that it was never about the money. It was always about liberation. Because for Capricorn, money is not the destination, it's the lever, the mechanism that lifts them out of inherited limitation, the strategy that turns legacy wounds into structural freedom, the proof that slow, quiet, intentional growth doesn't just work, it wins. And while others try to manifest abundance through volume and vision boards, Capricorn manifests through consistency, through a morning routine that no one sees, through financial check-ins that feel less like tasks and more like rituals, through saying no to lifestyle creep even when the raise comes in, through finding peace in frugality, not because they're afraid to spend, but because they know exactly what they're buying: safety, stability, sovereignty. That's the real wealth Capricorn chases, not the bag, the blueprint. And sometimes, that wisdom gets lost in a culture that glorifies speed, in a system that confuses loud with credible, in a world that mistakes performance for progress. So let this be a reframe. Let this be the moment you stop apologizing for your pace, for your precision, for your refusal to be rushed into a version of success that looks good but feels wrong. Let this be the moment you reclaim your rhythm, the one that builds deep instead of wide, the one that chooses silence over spectacle, the one that multiplies impact without ever having to explain it. Because the truth is, Capricorn doesn't need to go viral. They need to go vertical, to build upward, to root downward, to become the column others lean on when everything else collapses. That's the kind of wealth that's hard to see in the short term, but impossible to ignore in the long run. So if you've ever felt out of place in conversations about fast money, if you've ever felt too grounded, too measured, too realistic, then good. You're not falling behind. You're building beneath. And what you're building can't be taken, can't be replicated, can't be undone by a bad week or a bad market, because it's not built in algorithms. It's built in you. There's a reason you've been feeling more still lately. Not stuck. Still. Grounded. Less reactive. More selective. You're not burned out. You're refining. You're not uninspired. You're focused. Because Capricorn doesn't chase clarity through chaos. You create clarity through structure, through rhythm, through anchored attention that doesn't need urgency to feel alive. The wealth you're building now isn't just in what you do. It's in what you no longer entertain. The drama you don't feed. The trends you don't chase. The habits you choose even when motivation is nowhere in sight. This is the inner life of a wealthy Capricorn. Not loud, not performative, but precise. It looks like early mornings with spreadsheets and soft light. Budget reviews that feel more like intention setting than restriction. Moments of silence where you hear yourself think clearly, and those thoughts sound like strategy, not self-doubt. It looks like walking away from almost good enough. Not because you're picky, but because you've tasted alignment, and now you refuse to settle for less. It looks like saying no with love, no to overcommitment, no to energy leaks, no to that version of you who used to say yes just to feel safe. It's a quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to be proven, because its presence is undeniable, and the more you lean into it, the more the external begins to mirror the internal. More aligned clients, more resonant work, more sustainable income, more rest that actually restores you, not just distracts you. Because when Capricorn heals their relationship to urgency, they unlock their relationship to ease. And when ease enters the room, so does exponential growth. This is the phase no one talks about, because it doesn't look glamorous on the outside, but inside it feels like mastery. And when you live from that place, that calm center of capability, the world starts to respond. You're not just paid for your labor anymore. You're paid for your presence, for your energy, for the way you hold space, solve problems, and stay the course when others spin out. And slowly, silently, steadily, the tycoon emerges, not with a bang, but with a blueprint. And when people finally ask, "How did you build all this?" you'll smile gently and say, "I just kept showing up, even when it wasn't exciting, even when no one noticed, even when it felt slow. I trusted the system I built because I trusted the self that built it."